Finally did it. Dulcich has been wanting to paint the crop duster forever, and it looks like I couldn't stop him. So this is going to be part 1 of 2 episodes on a complete repaint on the Roadkill crop duster, starting with Dulcich's homegrown bodywork. This crop duster. The motor is sharp, it's all brand new trams, all the mechanicals are just perfect. Look at it. This thing looks like a pile of junk. Every time Freiberger comes over here, I'm asking him to paint this thing, and he always just says, no, I like it like that. I don't have to take care of it. People love it like that. Well, you know what? I don't. This time, Freiberger's not here. Wow. Just love this thing. But you know, I just don't love the way it looks. Look at this scale all over the roof. Man, that's going to eat its way all the way through. Just like right here. Holes, dents. I'm going to start off right here at the top. Grind all this rust off. Metal treated. Primer. Work my way down. And make this thing look as good as it runs. All right, the first thing we've got to do is take these revel moldings off, because I don't want to be grinding and sanding in here, scratch these things all up. They're in pretty much perfect condition. Plus I want to get right into the edge, and I've got to come in here where the hole is and make sure the metal is still good back behind in the window channel. So, got a whole bunch of different tools, some homemade, some store-bought. And you know what? They never really work that well on these old cars. All this stuff is really stuck down. You've got a 90% chance of bending this and ruining everything. And you know, the alternative, you could probably just call the windshield guy. That might not be it. That plan is not sounding so bad to me. All right, I got all the molding off without wrecking anything. But I've been staring at this windshield the whole time thinking about one thing. Sooner or later, that is going to have to come out. I've got all kinds of rust down under here. It's a mess. The windshield's pitted. It's got some delamination. So I'm going to bite the bullet, and I'm just going to take it out right now. So what are we going to do about all this rust? You know, it's scaly, but it's solid. And there's a lot of things you can do, and believe me, I've tried them all. But what I want to do is do this quick, easy, as fast as possible, and still have it good. This is how I do it. I'm just going to sand it with 80 grit. It's going to knock all the loose stuff off, and then I'll follow up with a conversion coating. This chemically converts the rust to a solid oxide of some sort. I don't know, the bottle won't spill it on exactly what it converts it to, but it converts it to something stable prior to primer. Now that might seem kind of cheesy and cheating, but it's not. I'm telling you, it'll probably be good for another 40 years. You better have plenty of sandpaper, because heavy rust like this dulls it out in no time flat. I've got the bargain size here. Well, I've got all that scale sanded off. Just rubbing on the conversion coating now. Got to let the stuff dry overnight. By then, it should be ready for the first coat of primer. There's a lot more to do, but I definitely think this is progress. Wow, that looks great. So what I've got here is the conversion coating. It did its job perfectly. Pretty much killed any remaining rust in the pits. Now what you get when it dries are like a buildup of crystals on the top surface. So I'm going to just sand this all down really quickly, make it nice and smooth, tape it off. Then I'm going to hit it with some epoxy primer to seal it off, because this part of the car is pretty much done. Yeah. That's going to be nice. All right, finally, what I've been waiting for, a nice white roof. It's not going to be paint, it's primer. I'm using the epoxy. I picked white because I always like using primer that's very close to the top coat color. That way, if you get a little chip or something happens, you're not seeing red or black underneath the white. So I like that way of doing things. I'm going to hit this with the primer just to preserve the work that we've done right here on the roof, and then we'll move on to the rest of the car. All right, so that's the first coat of primer. I'm happy already. Got this all nice and white. Now I've got to let this dry, then I'm going to sand it. There's going to be some surfacer, which is a primer that'll build the surface up, fill in any imperfections, block sanding and all that. But I'm not going to do that till I get the rest of the car. But the roof, all that rust, gone. So, yeah, that's progress. Wow, that is way better. I'm totally stoked about this. I hope Freiberger likes it. Anyway, top down, rest of the car to go. I've just been procrastinating. I really wanted to get the crop duster painted and kind of hit it and made some progress, but then, boom, just walked away and let it sit out in the rain. I don't know why I do that all the time, but I had some primer on the roof here. I cleaned all the rust, but this has been aging in the weather, so I'm probably going to have to knock all that down. But really, the car doesn't need very much. I'm just going to squiz over the whole thing, fix what needs fixing, and then just get straight into it. It's not going to be a show car, but it's going to be pretty good. So I'm going to probably start off attacking some of these problems, like right here. I got a crease. I don't need to get it perfect, just good enough for Bondo. So the first thing I do is just strip the area. What I'm going to use is one of these clean and strip wheels. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I mean, really, you could probably just bash that little peak in and mud right over it. No one would know, but I would know, so I want to do a pretty good quality job on that, and I'll fix it the right way. Get to try out the old stud gun. Actually, the brand new stud gun. I just got this thing. The idea here is we're going to weld these little studs right onto the panel. I'm going to go to the deepest part, and this slide hammer grips it, and that should start working the dent out. This will spot welded right on. Oops. Oh. Looks like I blew my circuit breaker. This is not going so well. Come on, stud welder. Oh. Is this thing jacked up? Oh, maybe I have to do this. There we go. Finally. So what I'm going to do is take the slide hammer next. It'll grab that stud and hopefully be able to pull that low spot out with a couple of... It might take more than one try, and the stud will probably break off, but... Well, that didn't do it. Yeah, you just grab the stud with the tool like that. Turn the little knurled knob and... Wow. Supposed to grip that thing. It looks like the slide hammer is not going to grab the smaller of the nails that we're welding in, so I'm going to try to weld in the big ones. I've got my stud welder, and it's going to make me into the bodywork stud that I am. You just plant that in the deepest part of the dent, pull the trigger, and presto, welded right on there. Hopefully, you can pull some dents. Ah, there she goes. There she goes. Wow, that pulled out quite a bit. Yeah, you can't expect to get the whole dent out in one little pull. Oh yeah, that's coming out. I'm kind of feeling it with my fingers. Once it gets out to about the other metal, I'll slow down. I think that's pretty good. Now if I can get the thing to release. Okay, this is just me floundering. I think it's all roll credits at this point. Oh man, look at that, I put a hole right in it. Now the question is, what do you do with this tip? I guess if you wiggle it around and break it off, you'll poke a hole in the metal like I already done. What I'm going to do instead, as I've refined my technique here, is just use my death wheel, or sometimes called the wheel of death. Look at that. The stud is removed. Now you can take a grinder and grind off the head of the nail, or you can risk it with the death wheel. It's completely gone. Now, unfortunately, in my learning curve, I tried to break the nail off, and I kind of put a hole in here, but a quick zap of the MIG will fix that. It's pretty good, really. It's not bad. I think that's Bondo ready at this point. So that is the stud welder. That's the compelling story of how you pull a crease out of a piece of metal with the welding machine. Whoa, that is one sweet weld. I'll call that good enough to bond it. Man, this whole front of the fender was smashed up when Freiberger first got this car from me. I just kind of roughed it out way back when, but now since I'm painting the car, I've got to fix it right. The only thing I'm using are two items, the hammer and the dolly. The hammer is pretty self-explanatory. They've been around for a while. The dolly too. The trick is using the two together. The dolly backs up your sheet metal panel. Otherwise, you're just hitting something unsupported and you have no control. By moving the dolly back there, you're pinching the metal between the two surfaces, and eventually you can get it pretty straight. The body working term is called planishing. And basically, it's just a whole bunch of really light blows, and it takes all these ripples out. One of the things about this panel is it's got quite a few lines, and those lines are all distorted and messed up. I can use the edge of the dolly to kind of try to define them a little bit better than they are now. Maybe an hour with the hammer and the dolly, and I'll have this front fender looking great again. It's not like a metal finish perfect, but it's way, way good enough to start bongoing. So what I need to do is strip the paint off all these areas where I've hammered, and then I'll move on to finishing it off with some filler. So I've got my metal work to where I'm pretty happy with it. The next thing I'm going to do is start working with regular polyester body filler. First thing I want to talk about is how I mix it. I use a stick, kind of scoop out some of this putty, and I put it on cardboard, which guys say, you can't put it on cardboard. It'll pick up little fibers, and it's going to contaminate your filler. Well, you know what? I've never had any kind of problem with it contaminating or anything like that. Put the hardener in like so, mix it up like so, get it pretty even. Now I'm going to get right into the spreading from here because this is going to go off pretty fast. So you might notice I'm using a plastic spreader. Some pros like to use metal spreaders. I like the ability to be able to flex that a little bit to get the shape, and then I'll just start laying it on. The thing is, you don't want to overwork it. If you overwork it, you'll get pinholes and it just won't spread nicely. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the way the line came out. So basically, that's the way I apply filler. You may do it differently, but I bet you won't get a better result. Most of that is cleaned up pretty nicely. This line's coming in nice and straight, so I'm happy about that. All right, so I've got most of the body filler work done. I think it's pretty good. What I want to do is put some primer on here to protect it. Well, all right, that should keep it protected for now. Overall, it looks pretty good. Time to call it a night. There it is, the famous rust hole. Freiberger covered it up with a little bit of gaffer tape, but I think it's about time to fix it right. So how do you do it? How do you fix a rust hole? Rule number one, you can't weld to rust. So the first thing is, I'm going to take this death wheel and cut it back until I find good metal. Now the next thing is, where am I going to get the patch? You could just buy a piece of flat sheet metal, but I've got this perfectly good piece of Dodge Challenger that we cut out of the dirt track Challenger. Doesn't this shape right here look just about like that? I mean, if you squint hard enough, you might see a Duster A-pillar right in this piece. All right, I think that's pretty good progress. Get to work on making a piece. So what I did here is I made this cardboard little template to fit the area that I cut out. I'm gonna have to make a steel piece that looks just like that. All right, so I've got the part cut out. I'm way, way far away from having it perfect. I've got too much of a bend here. It needs a little bit of an angle, and I've got to have a crown. What I'll do is I'll just work it with the hammer and dolly. If I hit this corner here, it'll flatten out that 90-degree bend. I've got this patch panel pretty well fitted in here. It's not perfect, but it's good enough to weld. Once I grind it, it's going to be at least as good as the factory seam. Actually, a lot better. Hey, looks like Freiberger. Hey, what's going on?
You already started?
Yeah.
Really?
Check it out. What's that look?
The damage is done?
I told you I want to paint the Duster.
I know, that was the deal, but realizing that it's the beginning of the end is kind of different.
Look at that front fender.
Whoa. Wow.
And check it out.
This was maimed all in here, and then you hit it with that claw hammer.
No, made it worse. But now it's good. And you're just in time to weld in this patch panel.
Oh, dude. This is way worse than I thought it was.
Yeah, I know.
Look at that. Gaff tape had that perfectly repaired.
Oh.
You know what it means when we start painting a car? As soon as the paint hits it, it never gets back together again.
It will this time.
Are you sure?
I think we're going to turn a corner on this whole thing.
You want to get something to block the wind because it's just going to blow the gas away. The problem is when you're MIG welding, there's a shield of protective gas that comes out the end of the gun. And when it's windy like this, it just blows it away. And it's like welding with no gas whatsoever. And it gets all disgusting and even worse than my usual.
Yeah, I've got this highly flammable styrofoam. I thought it'd be a good welding shield.
Oh, wow. That is thin.
Yeah.
Wow. That is going to be a mess in this wind.
Maybe we should have just driven it into the shop, welded it in there.
You think?
Yeah.
Yeah, why are we working outside?
I don't know.
You didn't tell me that. Steve made this little patch panel, and it's a really tough fit because all the metal here is fairly thin. There's a big gap. It's windy outside, but I think I'm making it happen.
Oh, that sounded pretty good.
Yeah, look at that.
Oh, it's nice.
What we're doing is like tacking the edges of it, and then as you go, you can use a screwdriver, hammer to start just shaping it to where you need it to be. Have a look at that.
Whoa!
It's together and it's fileable, but wow, that part right there is pretty ugly.
Just going to shave it a little bit and then a little bit of Bondo, and no one will be the wiser.
How is it?
I think it's totally acceptable.
Oh, wow.
Look at that, it's fixed.
Wow, that's way better than I thought when I was boogering it.
It had a giant hole in it, now it's solid metal. I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, this car is in great condition.
Okay, well.
Man, I think I might have let you have it too cheap.
Okay, well, I'm off to one lap of America for 2 weeks. And this will all be way better when I get back, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, see ya.
All right. Don't hit the Challenger.
Well, I think that's gonna be okay. See, Dulcich has some Viking methodology, but you cannot argue with the results. I mean, he's painted a couple different cars for me, and they've come out really nice. As a matter of fact, this one is a trade for that 67 Cougar that was in the very first episode of Roadkill Garage, if you remember that thing. The Crop Duster is kind of a different story on paint. I mean, look at the legacy of that thing. It's such a roadkill car. It first appeared on an episode of Roadkill where we pulled it out of Dulcich's backyard because I had forgotten that I had even traded him for it and that it was my car. And then we put the 440 in it that used to be in the General Mayhem, and that was super cool. And then later on Roadkill Garage, Dulcich and I threw a 3D3 big block in it. And it took a couple episodes, but we finally got that thing running into the 11s, and a lot of the audience really bonded with the car. And a bunch of people are saying, oh, you can't paint it, ratty muscle cars, patina, it's super cool, and all that stuff. And I kind of felt the same way. But the deal is, not every one of our cars has to be complete garbage. And so we're gonna paint this one. We got a couple surprises for you on that. I think it's gonna turn out looking really cool. And you'll see that when we get around to part 2 of the Dulcich Shows You How to Paint Your Car episodes of Roadkill Garage.